So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm excited. We're in for a treat today because we have my friend, Erica Padilla, who's going to be speaker today. So I'll share her bio, and then I will turn the floor over to her. But for those of you who don't know her, Erica Padilla, she's the CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank. She took on, yes, big time. She took on that role in 2022. Her career embodies a commitment to the improvement of health and wellness for all people. With over 2 decades of experience in the health and human services field, Erica has a history of facilitating collaborations that impact positive change, and I can vouch for that. I'm in many meetings and at the table with her, and she is very committed to her community. She has a deep understanding of health equity and is well versed in the social detriments of health, the conditions that affect a wide range of health and quality of life outcomes for people. During her career, she has served as the department manager for UCSC's Latin America and Latino Studies Department, the first health equity and policy manager for the Monterey County Health Department, and CEO of Paja Valley Prevention and Students Assistance. Erica is a member of Dominican Hospital's Community Board, former president of the Hartnell College Board of Trustees, and has held several additional board positions, including mine, housing Santa Cruz County. She was on that board for 3 years. Thank you for your service. Erica attended the University of California, Berkeley, where she received her Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology and Masters of Public Administration from Golden Gate University in San Francisco. Erica currently serves on the board of directors for the California Association of Food Banks, contributing her leadership experience to support food banks across California. So I'm sure most of you have heard of the Second Harvest Food Bank before. I invited Erica to speak here. I was, as the president of the NAACP, I keep my hands on the pulse and make sure I'm in connection with national. And the NAACP continues for nationals focus this year, 2025. One of them was the fight against food insecurity. And so in 2025, the NAACP continued its fight against food insecurity by advocating for the protection and increased funding of SNAP and other vital food assistance programs that was threatened by potential cuts this year. So Erica, I'm going to turn this over to you, and then we're going to open it up. If you have any questions for Erica, but the one thing I'm going to ask of you is how can we support you, this community, with food insecurities? So with that,
Thank you, Elaine, for that nice introduction, long introduction. Suffice it to say, I believe in community and believe that my gifts to this world is bringing people together to impart positive change for especially community members, our neighbors who are often disregarded in conversation or not a part of the thought process when policy programming or service programming is being thought of. So it's a true honor to be of service to your food bank, Second Harvest Food Bank, which, by the way, first food bank in the state of California, in case you didn't know that. And UC Santa Cruz Black Panther Party is really to be credited with beginning the food bank movement in Santa Cruz County and in California, to be specific. So a lot to celebrate in terms of the contributions that our African American neighbors have made to our community, continue to make in our community. And Second Harvest Food Bank is a manifestation of the love that I've seen in my career is espoused by our African American brothers and sisters who are equally in the fight to ensure equity and justice for all. I have a few slides. I have been presenting to all of our city councils, and I recently presented to the Board of Supervisors. And I thought that I would just share the most recent presentation that I shared with the Board of Supervisors. And I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to run through the slides real quick, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. I'm always happy to go back and open up any of the slides if you're interested in going into depth. First of all, thumbs up. Can you see my screen? Yes? Very good. I'm using PowerPoint, not PowerPoint, a PDF for this because my computer doesn't like PowerPoint. I don't know. That's where you got me. I am not very good with technology. This is as far as I go. I wanted to begin just with our mission. It's very important to me that as I speak, those who are listening to me understand the why we do what we do. And we just adopted a new mission for our food bank where we acknowledge that we're doing more than nourishing individuals. We're doing it because we really believe that by nourishing individuals, we're supporting their overall health and well-being. It's why we do what we do. It's not just about nourishing, it's really about helping individuals fulfill their lives, their journey, and the dignity that I know all of us possess. Like to just let you know what I'm going to be covering. I'm going to give you some basic understanding of our county's food security network. I want to give you a sense of what's happening at the national level with some of these cuts that Elaine mentioned in her introduction. I want to give you some insight as to what we're doing at the moment to address some of those concerns. And then, of course, as Elaine alluded to, I want to motivate you to continue to elevate food insecurity and the reality that we have so much of it in our county, in your club, and in your conversations for the future. First, I'd like to just place you with when we say network, when you hear me say network, it's very important to distinguish that we have three different networks. We're highly organized across our state, our country, actually. At the national level, we are partners with Feeding America. Many of you probably have heard of their logo or have seen commercials. That is a membership-based organization of which 200 food banks from across the nation belong to. This is a sister organization that we work with to do all federal legislative work and advocacy work. Feeding America also brings awareness of our 200 food bank network with corporations. So when corporations donate commodities, they do it, if they do it through Feeding America, it's going to come directly to your 200 food banks across the nation. At the state, we have a state association, and I'm on the board of the state association, as Elaine mentioned during her intro of me. As you can imagine, the state association is our sister organization where we do all things state advocacy and state legislative work. So that is how we're organized. And at the local level, it's important for you to know that we have a county-wide network comprised of 67 partner organizations. And these are churches and nonprofits who have entered into agreement with us to help us distribute food to every corner of the county. And this is a map that highlights where we distribute food. We have 106 distribution sites throughout the county. 67 partners again. I highlighted for the Board of Supervisors that 19 of our 67 partners are serving the unincorporated areas of the county, recognizing that some members of the board maybe don't represent jurisdictions, but represent unincorporated areas. And then our unduplicated count of individuals we serve per month varies. Look at February of 2025. We hit over 100,000 people in our county. And I want to just stress and remind us all that we have a population of 265,000 people in our county, right? The pervasiveness of food insecurity in our county is pretty steep. June represents one of our, I would say, summer months when we know that a lot of our agricultural workers are working, and you can see how it declined as a result of that. Now, I have to tell you that last year's annual average, what we do is at the end of the fiscal year, we take a look at all of our months and divide the total by 12, and we come up with an average. Last year's average was 73,000 people per month. Just based on the numbers I'm seeing already this year, I can tell you that we're probably well going to exceed that at the end of this fiscal year. And yes, of course, demographically speaking, we do not collect demographic data other than zip code information because food banks pride themselves in making sure that we're very easy access and we are not interested in querying people to the degree where they feel uncomfortable. It's already uncomfortable enough to come and ask for food. We certainly don't want to add to their stress or their anxiety about that. But we do know that we have a overrepresentation in communities where you see people of color. So that we can count on sharing that data with you. 29,570,000 people live in the unincorporated area. So we are serving both people within a city and those who live in the unincorporated area. This is an important slide because I think it's very important to understand where our food insecure neighbors are accessing their food. And if what you see here is the breakdown of the primary food programs in our county. This report was actually done by the Blum Center at UC Santa Cruz. We're in the process of updating our data, but I'm going to probably guess just based on the numbers that there's just deeper pervasiveness of needs. So some of these numbers might shift slightly, but it won't change the overall makeup. So the majority of people in our county, the first line of defense for their food insecurity is the CalFresh or SNAP. In California, we call it CalFresh. The national name for that program is SNAP. In California, we like to Cal our way through everything. And so that's why it's called CalFresh. So about 42% of our neighbors who are food insecure access their nourishment through that program. It's followed by the food bank and its partner networks at 32.5%. And then you see school meals, and the CACFP is the meals for our senior community. So think Meals on Wheels. Yes, right. That makes up the sum of the 22%. And then WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, come in with the smaller contribution, yet also so important for our newborn babies and their moms. This is important for you to understand because what food banks are dealing with right now is the impact of the changes that the SNAP program has created, which we know will inevitably move people from the blue into the white or the gray area here. So food banks are essentially preparing themselves to likely become the first line of defense against food insecurity as a result of people either being ineligible now for CalFresh and some of the ineligible individuals who HR 1 now includes refugees and those seeking asylum in our nation. Prior to that bill, individuals were able to access CalFresh or SNAP. Now they can't. And then in addition to that, we have new work requirements that will add additional pressure and stress to the individuals that are already struggling to make ends meet. So let me talk a little bit about all the other impacts, and I'll talk a little bit more about SNAP. So it's important for you to know that in the spring, and you probably remember reading about what was going on with the food bank back in the spring when the early days of this episode, right? We actually saw cancellation of programming that we have had through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is the federal department that we have had a long-standing partnership with. And we saw a cancellation of a local food purchase assistance program. It's basically federal funding that was granted to food banks to procure food commodities from BIPOC farmers. That program is no longer in effect. And then we also saw the cancellation of one of the funding sources that the USDA had established for purchasing food to send to food banks. And that hit us with $400,000. So these are funding dollars that I will not count on for the foreseeable future. And then administratively, they took some of my storage and distribution funding away as well. So your food bank is already raising 70% of its funding through private philanthropic efforts. And anytime that you see a decline in federal or state funding, it adds to an already very tall order for us to be able to meet the nourishment needs of our community. I talked about the SNAP program and the new eligibility requirements. The SNAP program now requires all individuals between the ages of 16 and 64 to have to provide certification that they're either working or volunteering 80 hours a month every 6 months. Failure to do so will mean that those individuals will fall off the program. And we're working with the county at the moment to make sure that we have a robust volunteer ecosystem in our county to help people who may not be employed fulfill that requirement. We would like to keep them on CalFresh. To put it into perspective, cumulatively in the county of Santa Cruz, about 40,000 people are on CalFresh. The cumulative federal dollar that comes in via that program equates to about $78 million. So not only will there be an impact to those individuals in the households that may lose from having that program and those resources, it will also have a ripple effect in our local community and our local stores. And it'll have severe impacts for our smaller business owners who may be opening up their small stores for access to EBT um, uh, purchase of food. Um, we are preparing as a food bank, like I said, to see a surge in demand at our doors. If people aren't able to access food through EBT, they will do so by coming to our doors and accessing food. This is compounded, this policy shift is compounded by what you see here now is the data of the amount of food donated to your food bank, vis-a-vis the people in need or the pervasiveness of needs. You could see at the beginning, this is the recession, 16, 17. Remember that episode? There were a lot of people that were hungry. A lot of companies were not necessarily producing food. And then you saw the decline in 18, 19. So you got to see the economy getting a little better. And then what happened in 1920? COVID came, right? And you see the escalation of need and you see a little bit of a ramp up of food donors. And then post-pandemic, this is what's been happening. We saw food donation decline, primarily because, as you can imagine, our name is Second Harvest. We benefit from the imperfect food that is made available, right, by these food producers across our country. And one of the things that has happened is there's been two things that has happened to food systems. One, technology is allowing corporations and food producers to be better at estimating food production needs vis-a-vis market demands. And the second thing that's happening is, at least when it comes to some of the food that we're so used to seeing come to our doors, is that you had an emergence of a second market system, like think grocery outlet, right? Think Dollar Tree, right? So you've seen an emergence of those types of markets, which means that there's less food that companies that would typically send food to food banks are now shifting to these second market systems, which is good. I mean, they're employing people, and it's important to also acknowledge their contribution to our local economy. But that has had played a role in how food banks procure their food. So what are we doing? So I mentioned that we're working with the county. We are engaging leaders in the food security system, including partners at UCSC, Cabrillo College, places where we know individuals who depend on CalFresh are in high volume. We know a lot of students at UCSC are enrolled in the CalFresh program. We know that students at Cabrillo are enrolled in the CalFresh program. We're working with Community Bridges because they serve a senior population. We've convened a roundtable of leaders to begin to plan for the impact that the SNAP changes will have. The other thing it's important for you all to know is that the county commissioned our food bank to serve as a convener to rescue food from all the local food or grocery retailers. So what does that mean? Rayleigh's and Safeway, they turn over their food from the shelves every 2 to 3 years because they want to sell you uh, top of the line product, but some of that food is still edible, right? So Second Harvest works with a subset of our partners to go pick up the food throughout the county so that we can also integrate that into our food distribution. We are seeing, and early on when we saw the immigration activity done in Southern California, we immediately saw impact in some of our distribution sites that have historically served immigrant neighborhoods. So we've had to pivot to make sure that individuals, neighbors of ours who are immigrant, know how to access food, and we are innovating by providing food via home delivery. to households who are fearful of potentially showing up to one of our distribution sites. And we're working right now to maximize the volume that we can do there. And there's an opportunity, by the way, for volunteers to help in that. Also, we are leveraging new partnerships. You see the picture there on the slide. This is a farmer who, due to impacts, contractual impacts, was not going to be needing this field with this product, and essentially came to our food bank and said, "Would you like to glean the farm?" So we now have gleaning twice a week at this farm, and we got volunteers picking the food off of this farm. This farmer has been so gracious and loved this that we are already planning to enter next year, and he'll just plant whatever crop we're asking him to plant. So another opportunity there for volunteers. It happens twice a week. We're also educating the community as to what is happening to their food bank, making sure everyone is well versed on how we're planning and also how we're preparing. And ultimately, our goal is to maximize engagement from the community because this is going to take a local community level effort as we continue to see potentially the decline of government involvement in food banks. And this is a quote that I live by. It's what makes me get up every morning, even though things are super challenging at the moment. And I do believe very strongly that when we come together and we work to achieve a common cause, we will achieve it. And that I've seen the positive impact that comes when there is that collective effort, when we are working to strive to meet the needs of community. And so that's the approach, frankly, and the framework that I'm going to be using as we navigate these challenging times. So I'm going to stop sharing there so I can entertain your questions, but I hope you learned a thing or two about your food bank and how we take care of the community in our backyard.
Mm. Thank you, Erica. I actually learned a thing or three myself.
Mm.
That's awesome. Appreciate it. Does anybody have
Well,
any questions?
Elaine, I forgot to say one
Yeah.
thing that as we were developing our strategic plan, which we will unveil in the coming months, we spent 2 weeks surveying our participants at various distribution sites.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we asked the question of what is contributing, what is the primary contributor to your food insecurity in your household? 97% of the respondents cited housing costs
Yeah.
as the primary reason,
Yeah.
right? Why the work that you do, Elaine, is so important. I'm not interested in seeing lines grow, right? We should all
Yeah.
be celebrating the reduction of need in our
That's
community,
right.
but we got to address the root cause of the problem and housing and the expensive nature of that essential need in our county is contributing to the rise in food insecurity. Wanted to share that information
Yeah.
as well.
And I'm glad you did. Because I had when I had invited you to come, something that's been sitting on my heart. It wasn't that long ago where, I was asking my landlord if she can wait a couple of weeks for the rent so that I can get something to eat. Right. It wasn't that long ago, 15 years ago. So we're all impacted by this, right? And, there's a pain that I've never heard people talk about, including myself. And that pain is going to bed hungry. That is the worst pain in the world. And I went to bed a lot of times growing up hungry. And to have to experience that again as a grown person with a law degree, right? It was scary. Um, but that's why I think this is so important because Erica, you're right. It's always do I pay the landlord or do I get something to eat and feed my babies, right? And that has to shift and it has to change.
And I didn't talk about the impact of the changes in the Medicare system, right? Or not the
Mhm.
Medi-Cal, the Medicaid system,
Yeah.
right? And now we're going to have families that are going to have to be making a decision of do I save my money to be able to afford to go to the doctor, or do I get food? I mean, those are also impacts that we will see firsthand at the food bank and across the distribution sites. people are going to need support to supplement their food supply at home. If not, have it be the primary and only food supply at home, right? So
Yeah.
the HR1 implementation will have severe impacts on people that are already working really hard to make ends meet.
Mhm.
But I will say that the food bank, if anything, we're resolved to figure out how do we increase our flow of food in. And frankly, I'm preparing to spend the most money I've ever had in the history of the food bank to procure the food that is needed, right? So that's why you're hearing us so much. Please donate, please donate, please donate. I hear from the food distribution partners, we need more of this, we need more of
Yeah.
that. That
Mhm.
USDA cancellation that I talked about, that got canceled in the spring, what was canceled was protein, right?
Mhm.
Was the commodities that I can't access around here,
Mhm.
right? And I've heard it from our partners, right? Erica, where's the protein? Exactly, where is the protein,
Mhm.
right? And it's a very expensive commodity for us to procure. Meat isn't cheap, right? So we're pivoting as much as we can, but this is an opportunity for community building and community organizing and community collaboration. That's one way that I know the NAACP can help.
Thank you. Questions for Erica? Yeah, Lonnie, stopped you.
Thank you, Erica. The work you're doing is so critical. I
Hmm.
have to say, I attended the last couple of board of supervisors. I watched later. I wasn't able to be there in person, and just completely struck. Everyone should watch the 30th, September 30th, to hear what's coming down the pike. That's going to impact our kids, who are making 18 to 25 bucks an hour, and it's really, really scary. And that just moves on down the line to the most vulnerable in our communities, our seniors, our people with disabilities. Um, and even before this was happening in 2024, when I was at the farmers markets talking to people, I had seniors, in particular, I have in my mind the faces of the people I spoke to saying, I have to choose food, medicine, or rent. And I don't get to cover all of those every month. And that was before we are entering a really, really awful time. And my question, I was really glad to hear that the group Feeding America works on the federal legislative, because that to me, anytime I see issues, whether it's medical, I come from the medical world and the health world, is how do you get to that core, the root problem, that downstream problem that then everything else bubbles off of. And to me, the core is really our system, our broken system, right? That we have so many people who are even working full time today who can't afford medical care, who can't afford dental care, it can't, and then can't afford food. Now it's getting worse. And then our rent levels with private equity buying up everything from farms to hospitals to vets to whatever, you name it, our fire engines. So really changing the system. And I think that's where the fight at that federal level is critical. And so to hear, I think right now we're in a hard time because of where the control is, but how can we fight those root problems, get to the root?
Yeah, Lonnie, thank you for that. I will say that it's probably been the most challenging time to do advocacy work, but we have to stay on it, right? We all are a part of this democratic process. And so our Feeding America partners are really helping us ensure that we are talking about the impacts, right? Talking about the people in our communities and what we need from our federal public servants at this time as they're deliberating legislation and policies. They need to be thinking of the populace, right? Which they are there to advocate and support. And so we're at it. I belong to a few Feeding America committees because I believe wholeheartedly we can't just throw up our hands and let it be. We have to continue to bring the voice and the reality of our neighbors to the forefront of these deliberations.
Thank you.
Maria?
Well, Erica, I have always admired you, and seeing your budget and the financials and the numbers, even more so, and your relentless optimism. It's probably not relentless all the time, but you really uh, are such a great representative for the organization. So I have actually two questions. One real simple one, I think, is that it used to be the food bank would say, we love it when you put the food in the bins and you give us food that you bought or food you have left over, but we can buy a lot more food if you give us money. Is that still true or not?
Yes, and let me just put it into context for you all. So first of all, every dollar you donate equates to three healthy meals that we're able to put out. And I say healthy because your food bank has a policy that we will not distribute sugary and fatty foods to our community. If we're going to feed our community, we're going to contribute to health and wellness, right? So just know that. So $1 equals three healthy meals. And if you can imagine, it's always beautiful to see people put a can of goods or a box of food in the bin. But then we have to have our driver go pick up the bin, and then we have to bring it back, and then we have to sort it, and then
Right.
we have to inventorize it, and then we have to get it out. So by the time we go through all of that, we've probably um, invested well over the worth of the value of the bin itself, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so there is logistical reasons as to why we are asking for financial contributions instead.
Well, thank you for that. I will spread that word among the uh, those who may need that information. And the other is, I know that temporarily we're in this pretty horrible situation with the federal government, but in the kind of planning that people are doing, we are assuming that at some point we will have a responsive, caring national government again that will restore these programs. Yes? Question mark.
Well, you know me, as you said, a total optimist. So, yes, I believe that as a society, we will get back to the business of taking care of our neighbors, and that as responsible citizens, we will make sure that our public servants are doing so. So, yes, I believe it, which is why I don't let up on the advocacy effort. It's hard work, and often you don't see the outcomes or positive outcomes from it, but you're bringing the story of the neighborhood and of the people in it to the conversation. And that's very, very important. I can tell you, having worked for county government, how important it is to qualify the conversation so that we can move it away from just dollars and cents and boxes to actual faces of people, right? And so, I believe very strongly that NAACP and other civic organizations who understand that and the importance of that, and joining organizations like food banks to echo the importance of taking care of people, I believe that that will,
Yeah.
at some point, move us in the right direction.
Well, I do too. I'm glad to hear you say it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
John?
Oh, hi. I used to be an ambassador at Watsonville Second Harvest Food Bank, and what I really enjoyed was working was volunteering in the store and helping, people from organizations and real nonprofits do their shopping. I like that. I was in I was in a Capitola City Council meeting recently um, when Second Harvest gave a presentation, used these slides. And because there were some transportation, agenda items. Not long after the presentation, somebody starts talking about how how we should have, driverless cars and systems of electric cars. The technology exists. Capitola never ceases to let me down, right? Meanwhile, Second Harvest always shows up for the Center for Farm Worker Families. Doña Ann, Dr. Ann Lopez. For about a year, I supported them, showed up with a lot, usually baby stuff for their monthly distribution events. And the Second Harvest was always there. Always made a huge difference. Just brought a truckload of food. It was amazing. Um, one thing I was able to do during the fires is there's a bread distribution warehouse where they, bring the bread that is at or near or close to the best by date. And I was driving up SUV loads and everywhere from your partners like Loaves and Fishes, all the way up to the fire departments in Boulder Creek the day after the road opened because all their freezers were empty. I don't know if that's something that you have access to, uh, or if you can because the food's near the best by date. But all of that goes to ranchers. They feed hogs and cattle with it. They're eating zingers and ding dongs. I'm not kidding. Um, that worked out pretty well for me. I was taking it to Gray Bears, but they handled the food so roughly that I stopped because they just weren't listening to me. So I stopped and I just delivered it myself wherever I could. Anyway, thanks. You definitely have success stories out there, and a lot of us see it.
Well, thank you, Sean, for all the work you did and I hope continue to do in this space. At the food bank, for us, it's less about our flagship and it's more about making sure that however we can get food to people, we get it. Some of it we're able to capture, some of it doesn't necessarily come through the food bank. Ideally, we wanted to, though, so that we can understand the availability of food and we can optimize and be efficient with how we distribute it equitably across the county. It's important to think about that too. We are doing an assessment actually of an equity assessment of where there is deep pervasiveness of food insecurity and making sure we have enough accessibility in those areas to facilitate access. And if it helps any, we do get a substantial amount of bread that comes to us and we distribute it to our partner agencies. Even San Benito gets to benefit from some of that bread. So we're doing the best we can. And any advice you have on any new sources of food, I welcome them, Sean. I'll put my email on the chat and you can reach out to me.
Thanks. Before we go on to Don, I was part of Inner Light Ministries for many years, and we had Second Harvest Food Bank, and just every Thursday at 10 o'clock, it was just so beautiful. I mean, everybody got to know each other. It was almost like we became one big happy family, and it was such a blessing. We blessed the food, the whole nine, and I don't know, it was just really something special. We had that for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inner Light is great.
Yeah, Don.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your work. Yeah, this year I go to Twin Lakes Church and we seem like they're pushing Second Harvest a little bit earlier this year, which is totally cool. And my wife and I always give money instead of food because I know that goes a long way. I had a question is two. You can answer one or the other. First is how did the volunteer program work? How do people get volunteered to like pick fruit? And it sounds like something that's really interesting. And the other one is I never thought of this because I'm on the grand jury this year for the county and the city. We're always looking for subjects to study. At least I am. How does the city council and the supervisor for the county, what do they do? What role do they play in helping with food insecurity?
Wow, what a great question, Don. So let me answer the first one on the volunteer. Simple. You go onto our website, thefoodbank.org. I think I saw Jane circulate the link earlier. There's a button there that says ways to volunteer. You're going to see a calendar. You can pick the day, the time that you would like to volunteer. I think we have our cleaning program in there as well. You sign up, and then we have an entire team that will follow up with you, give you instructions, give you information in advance of your visit so that you're ready when you arrive. So, uh-oh, somebody's phone is ringing. I could hear that. So yes, please feel free to go online and volunteer. The home delivery program that I mentioned earlier, we're in pilot mode right now for that. Um, and one of the things that we've made a decision, because we are talking about households that are obviously afraid of sharing information, is that we're going to be using trusted partners to do those deliveries. And the NAACP obviously understands the plight of immigrants. And so when we are ready to expand that, I'll let Elaine know in case any of you would like to volunteer in that way. Second answer to your question regarding the county and the city. Part of the reason that I'm doing this roadshow, if you will, with the city councils and the board of supervisors is that they have helped us, but in a very limited fashion. We usually get small grants from city jurisdictions through the CDBG grant program that I think so many nonprofits apply. And frankly, sometimes because the amount is so small, and I know that there are other nonprofits that really, really need it, I make the decision not to apply so that other nonprofits can access it. But clearly, I mean, that has been typically the only avenue that supports food banks. At the county level, it was core funding. You guys all probably read about that funding source a few months ago. And we didn't get selected this last time around, which meant that we went from having $500,000, no more from the county for us to be able to distribute food. But I was able to speak to some of the supervisors and let them know that this would have been the first time in a very long time that the county would not have supported the only food bank in the county, which makes it even harder for us to take care of gray bears and everybody else. So they threw a little bit in there, and I'm glad that they did, $50,000 a year, but clearly below what was funded before. I recognize all the cities and all the counties are going to be pressed for dollars, and I recognize that everyone's going to be in need of support. But my message to our local leaders is if we can't figure out how to do the most basic thing for our neighbors, which is nourish them, then we're probably not going to be successful in housing them. We're probably not going to be successful in educating them. We're probably not going to be successful in making sure that they're employed and they stay employed, right? It doesn't get more basic and fundamental than nourishing our bodies, right? So that's been my message. And I said to them, all of them have asked, and they've been really gracious, how can we help? What I said to them is, I'm here to educate you because when I need your help, I'm going to be back and I'm going to ask for you to help, right? But for now, this is what I'm dealing with. And I want you to know that so that should I need you, doesn't come as a surprise that I'm before you, right? That I'm keeping everyone engaged.
Thank you, Erica. Dr. Charles?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for all your work. Uh, Maria referred to your relentless optimism. I would add your courageous compassion that
Mm.
really is just beautiful and absolutely necessary. Um, I'm going to be seeing, by the way, this is just a footnote. I'm going to be seeing, I do some volunteer classes in Soledad Prison, and I've been doing that for a couple of decades. And they have several volunteer groups of where they raise money. So I'm going to be bringing this information to them when I see them at the end of the month. And I've seen them raise money before, and
Mm.
they can do it. So that may be something else that will happen. Uh, but in a very different zone, is there any role for the state legislature in this? And if so, what is it? How do you do it?
We're in conversations right now with our state leaders about they're trying to figure out, frankly, the impact that the state's going to have with all of the cost shifting. One of the things I didn't talk about was that part of the bill, the HR1 bill, is that it shifts some of the administrative financial burden away from the federal government and onto the states.
Hmm.
So these program, this particular program and Medicaid as well, have historically been subsidized by federal funding. The shift now places financial burden onto states. And the state obviously does not have a budget allocation for covering those costs. So they are trying to quantify the actual impact and then assess how much of that they can actually absorb. But they've already said to us in a webinar that they brought us together, there's no way they're going to be able to absorb 100% of the impact. So we already know that the state is preparing us to be even more creative than we have been in our 53-year history by leveraging and braiding additional funding and support in other ways. So we are in conversation. There is a lot of support for food banks. The California Association of Food Bank, of which I belong to, is magnificent in making sure that the story of food banks across the state is heard by as many legislators as possible. And that's another way, by the way, Elaine, that the NAACP can help. We will get to a point in this upcoming legislative session where we will need to mount community support for whatever requests we are making of the legislature. And one way you can support is being active in that advocacy space with us.
Okay. Thank you.
We will definitely do that. Jane?
Yes, thank you so much, Erica, for the great work that you've been doing and for your dedication over the long haul. I can tell this is a lifetime commitment. And I've just come out of working in the kind of agricultural advocacy world, and I know that there's a number of farmers who are very committed to supporting food banks across the state, and that's been really, and they really take it seriously. So that's been really awesome to see. That's just my comment. My question is, I've heard about this thing called means testing, and I don't know if that's relevant to this program, but I thought that that had something to do with like the federal formula funding. So if that's relevant at all, could you explain what that means so that, because I think that's a way that the feds are trying to like dig into states, right?
Yeah, so the means testing is essentially two things. Um, it's the way in which they qualify individuals for services, and then they test to see whether the states are adhering to those very, in California, it's really, really challenging for a person to qualify for some of these programs. And here's why. They, the poverty numbers that are being used are federal numbers. They're not California-based numbers. And what we know about the cost of living in California is that we're very different than, say, Arkansas. We're very different than, say, Louisiana, right? Yet we're using federal averages for conducting the mean testing when individuals are applying for these programs. So somebody, I think right now for CalFresh, I think you have to be making less than $32,000 or $33,000 a year to qualify. Now, if you're making $32,000 or $33,000 a year in Santa Cruz County, you're availing yourself of a lot of different services and supports because there's no way that you can make ends meet with that level of salary coming in. And so what's happening right now, Jane, and I hope that this hits to your question, is that states are being audited for whether or not they are conducting the right tests for the people that are enrolled. And they call this the error rate. And so states with high error rates will be penalized by the federal government. And they've developed this criteria that if you have a certain error percentage, this is how much you're going to have to pay state. And if it's this is how much. And if it's this is how much. California is among the among the states with the highest error rate, says the federal government. And so on top of all the administrative costs that California will have to bear with the shifting of expense to states, they now have the burden of proof on that error rate. And there's a cost associated with that now. So I think this is why the state is saying there's no way we're going to be able to fulfill this. But yeah, it's what it is. And what I will say to your point about our local farmers, we are, at least in the Pajaro Valley and parts of our northern community, agricultural community, we are beloved and respected by our local food producers. Um, we have a great relationship with the Farm Bureau. We work in tandem with the Farm Bureau. When we need the Farm Bureau to advocate for us, they don't hesitate to do so. They've actually been quite effective in helping us even, at the state level with our work. Um, so they're not all bad, right? I know there's a narrative out there that they're not contributing, but actually I've seen quite the opposite. And when it comes to ensuring that we're getting food supply, a lot of them step up. Dick Pashode at Lakeside Organics is fabulous. Driscoll's is a strong partner. Jacob's Farm is a great donor. And similarly, we have a lot of small farmers who don't necessarily have a label per se, but they're coming in with excess product to make sure that we can share that with our partners. So um, it's just, we are kind of in a loving community, honestly. We're unique. I raised my family in Monterey County, loving people there too, but there's something very special about Santa Cruz County, I have to say.
Thank you. Does anybody have any last questions for Erica before we wrap up? Well, Erica, I want to thank you. This was so informative. The NAACP is in 300%. Let us know how we can show up and advocate. One of the things I'm going to talk with Jane about is I do want to get a group of us together and come and pack the food as a team. I would really love to do that with y'all.
Yeah. Elaine, I don't want to make it sound like a commercial, but we're about to kick off what we call our county-wide um, holiday food and fun drive. Every year, how we get the money to actually buy food for the following year is we ask the community as a whole to organize, to develop teams, to do fundraising. You probably read about Andrew Trowbridge, who started
Yes,
the lemonade stand.
yes,
This senior in high school, raised over $11,000 this
I saw
last
that.
week for the food bank. We've
Beautiful.
got we've got Dominican Hospital, whose nurses and doctors build baskets and then they raffle them up and then they
Hmm.
collect that money and give it to us. TLC has been a great supporter. We've got random individuals that we don't even know about who end up hosting dinners at their homes and they raise money that way and then they bring in a
Hmm.
check to the food bank.
Hmm.
I'd like to challenge the NAACP to form a team. We
Hmm.
actually create a web page for you on our
Okay.
website, and you can organize some sort of a community
Hmm.
effort
Hmm.
to contribute. It is not about the amount; it's
Yeah.
about the act itself,
Yes.
doing it,
Yeah.
right? And there's something beautiful to be said
Yeah.
about having over 100 teams throughout the county of all walks of life, of all backgrounds, organized for one cause. And so
Yes.
I can't wait for that because it's my favorite part of the year because I get to meet so many people.
Yes, please send us the information. We're in.
Okay, great.
Absolutely, we are in.
Well, thank you all for your
Thank you.
for your time and thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was a great night.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take good care.
Bye.